Great. Well, I think it's clear we all want 100% participation, zero fraud. We want to make sure people feel comfortable about elections, and we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that bad legislation does not pass to change our election system, and where the federal government makes all the decisions. So any of us can answer any questions anybody has.
Can I ask, you offered the proposal of the Save Democracy Act as a response to this S1 bill. Do you have any Democrat support for that whatsoever?
Well, it's not the first bill. I sponsored a bill last September to try to make sure we do mail-in ballot the right way. We do it in Florida. It works in Florida. We don't have sponsors so far on the Democrat side because they're in for the federal government controlling elections. I mean, they're against voter ID. The most basic principle is you have to have an ID to vote. On top of that, why should our taxpayers be paying for elections? They should never be paying for attack ads.
And if you don't have the Democrat support in S1, they're not able to get that through. A lot of Republicans lacked confidence in the 2020 election. So how do you bring Republican confidence back in elections if nothing passes before 2022 or 2024?
I think we've got to get the public to show up, and we've got to get them to call their senators and congressmen and women and say, you know, we expect election reform, and it's got to be in a manner that our vote's not going to be diluted. Yes, sir.
Several of you alluded to the idea that this could be the bill that Democrats would choose to try to change the rules on the filibuster on. I'm just wondering if you could address that possibility directly and whether that increases pressure on you all to meet with Senator Manchin to figure out sort of if there is some other path on this. It's not just they're going to blow up this rule if we don't come up with something.
Sure. Well, I don't know what the Democrats are going to do with regard to the filibuster, but I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure the public knows how bad this bill is. And this is a bad bill. It's not what the public wants. It's not what Republicans, independent Democrats want. And so what I'm going to do every day is make sure people understand that the Democrats don't want you to have to show an ID to vote. They don't want you to have to register to vote ahead of time. They want the federal government to pay for elections. So that's what I'm going to do.
Can I follow up on one specific thing you mentioned, this idea of same-day registration? I've not heard anybody convincingly argue why you shouldn't be able to register to vote on the same day.
I'll tell you why. You ought to be able to vet people to make sure that they have a right to vote. You make sure they're a U.S. citizen. Make sure they live in your state. Make sure that they're voting in the right area.
Does Florida have the capacity to do that in a day?
You'd have to ask the Secretary of State. We don't do it that way. You have to register to vote, and you should have to register to vote. You should have to ask for your absentee ballot. Your signatures ought to match, and you ought to have your voting on time. That's what we do in Florida.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thanks.